Why do you think Trump has fixed on Bagram airfield, and how does it fit into his broader foreign policy approach?
Well, it's good to see you again, Rana, as always.
Always a pleasure, sir.
There's no real reason for this, and nobody can figure it out. I mean, people in foreign policy circles, people in military strategy circles, it doesn't make any sense. When Trump was asked about it, his response was, they need stuff from us, and we just want it back. That's not a reason to go back into a very strategically unsecure environment. And it's, if this is a get back at Biden thing, that doesn't make sense. There's no rhyme or reason to this, and it baffles even some of the most intelligent foreign policy and national security analysts that I've talked to in Washington.
Okay, the Taliban called Bagram a red line. Do you see any convincible scenario in which they would hand it over to the United States? And I think, sir, that it's impossible, but I just want to know your take, sir.
Is there a situation that the Taliban, who runs the Afghan central government out of Kabul now, would give up Bagram Air Base back to the U.S.? The simple answer is no. But let me stress this. There is one caveat to that. The Afghan government has been striving to bring economic investment in. They are looking to, as their foreign ministry put it several weeks ago, they are looking to start negotiations to bring economic ties back to Afghanistan. The Afghan economy is falling into ruin, and it's falling on a daily basis. The only possible way is
to make things clearer, the United States is gonna make negotiations with Afghanistan again, you mean?
Yeah, I mean, that's the only possible way, is a financial return for it. As long as the Afghan economy is going down, the Afghan needs money and investment and economic partnerships. Giving Bagram back to the U.S. means that the U.S. Department of Defense would probably put some money into rebuilding, recreating some infrastructure, and hiring some local employees. That brings money back in the economy, which is desperately needed. That is the only possible way we see this as possibly going down. And again, let me be clear. I give that maybe a 5 to 10% chance of happening. There's just no logic to this at all.
Sir, do you see that this is a win-win situation from your own perspective?
For who? Is it a win-win for anybody? No. In fact, I think it's a lose-lose.
Afghanistan, at least, if it needs money from the United States?
No, it doesn't.
What is the status of the Taliban in the midst of this?
No, it's a lose-lose for everybody. It's a loser deal
for everybody. Okay, Trump justified the demand by citing proximity to Chinese nuclear facilities. Do you think this is a credible strategic rationale, or is it political theater, sir?
I think it's political theater. If you are trying to justify reclaiming Bagram Air Base in Afghanistan, a country that has largely been hostile to the United States by a government that was once deemed a terrorist organization by the United States government, even under the Trump administration, you cannot justify saying, oh, well, we want to monitor Chinese nuclear weapons proliferation from Bagram Air Base. No, that's not how this works. They can sell that to somebody else. It's not going to work in the general discussions of foreign policy or national security.
Could this demand derail the ongoing the demand, of course, sir, of U.S. President Donald Trump's demand that the Taliban hand over Bagram airfield? Do you think this demand derail the ongoing U.S. Taliban negotiations on prisoner releases, which are seen as the administration's key Afghan priority?
Again, this is another foreign policy almost quagmire, Rana, that we're looking at from the Trump administration. It absolutely does not make logical sense for them to say, okay, we want to grab Bagram back, but we're going to put this into a time when we're dealing with sensitive hostage and prisoner release negotiations. Bottom line here is, number one, the U.S. doesn't have a whole lot of street credibility in Kabul, in with the Taliban. A majority of the negotiations that are going on are being done by our usual diplomatic negotiating partners, thus being Qatar, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, UAE. We're not doing a lot of direct inside of Kabul. That being the case, focus on one and then maybe push the other, but to do it simultaneously is just muddying the waters in a situation that needs to be pretty crystal clear with a hostile government that really doesn't like us.
Mr. Russell, do you think on the ground, is it okay and is it approved that U.S. government asks suddenly for a takeover of an airfield because he decided this, or for something else would be taken in the middle of negotiations, or that something or there are any exchanges that's gonna happen between both countries, whether minerals, whether money that's gonna be paid for Afghanistan? Do you think this is logical, sir, or is it ideological even?
Again, I cannot stress enough the fact that I don't think there's a real answer to this. Look, when a U.S. base is established, the U.S. has control over that base. It's basically ceding, as part of the agreement, the Afghan government would be ceding this land that Bagram Air Base sits on, and putting it under U.S. jurisdictional authority. The issue there is the Afghans don't want to cede back any land, not 1 inch of Afghan land, back to the United States, who they see as the infidel and an invader and an occupying force in Afghanistan.
Got your
I
point,
don't
sir.
think that.
Sir, if the United States were to attempt a military takeover of Bagram, what would the risks and consequences look like for American lives, Afghan civilians, and regional stability?
It would be a powder keg. You were talking about recreating, Donald Trump was talking about, and the reason why he says that he made the deal with the Taliban government to withdraw U.S. forces from Afghanistan was because he was tired of engaging in long-term wars. If he goes in to take back Bagram in a hostile invasion, which is basically what this would be, that would just start another long-term war. And that, not to mention the fact, the loss of American lives, the loss of innocent civilian lives in Afghanistan. On top of that, you're also talking about lighting a keg on a bastion of extremism which comes out of Afghanistan, and relighting that up again. The U.S. can't handle that, and it's not a risk that I would take.
In your view, sir, what alternative options could Washington pursue to monitor ISK and other threats without escalating tensions with the Taliban and China?
Well, I mean, for a country like the United States, which has the best intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance capabilities in the world,
does it still have the best, sir?
I would, yes. Yeah, absolutely. I would say that. I mean, just because of, questionable decisions made by different administrations doesn't mean that the technology and the career operators that are involved in intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance have changed a lot. We still have that best capability, and we continue to use that. We use Al Udeid Air Base, for example, is supposed to be our over-the-horizon base for the entire region for CENTCOM, which includes Afghanistan. So why would you want to take away from that unless there's some underlying tension between Doha and Washington that neither wants to talk about, which I don't know that to be the case. But again, why would you go back into the throat of the animal that's going to bite you by putting U.S. forces in harm's way just by their presence in Bagram when you can do it from Al Udeid, Bahrain, or any of the other capabilities that we have? Even to the east of Afghanistan, we have Korea. We have South Korean bases. Again, this is more for dramatic effect. This is more for political drama than it is for anything else, because this is an administration that loves creating political drama.